We always believed that there could be another world war that would end up having us back on ration cards, lining up. And as we've gone through time, we're noticing more and more all these events happening and they're stacking and stacking. Before nukes go off, I really believe that people will start shutting down grids. Why would you want to risk losing any more men? A lot of women don't realize that they're natural preppers as it is. They're 5 steps ahead. It's just trying to open up their minds to it. Nobody is going to come protect your kids. If everything collapses, that is on you. These once in a lifetime moments are happening so rapidly that people don't even realize, like, that's not good. When something actually happens, I think 90% of the population will have no idea it's about to occur. Media is very biased and it is very planned. And it's all civil unrest inside North America. Well, every other country is talking about preparedness on some level if there was a true SHTF, but it would be very quick.
World War III is already happening.
This is a house of cards, and it is in the process of collapsing right now.
You're going to see an economic crash, the likes of which we've never seen.
Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. Today I have a very special guest, Charmingly Frugal, aka the Doomsday Queen. I've been waiting to get another fellow female prepper on the channel. It's been a while. I've been bringing on these crusty old dudes talking about the end of the world, and I figured we got to change it up a little bit. And what better way to do that than an upcoming YouTube superstar, the Doomsday Queen. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, well, you know, we were talking beforehand. I was binge watching 1923 last night. I don't know why I turned it on. I don't watch a lot of TV. But for some reason, that show hooked me. I like shows about the Old West because they simulate the apocalypse, what it actually would be. And you were telling me that you were binge watching the same show last night.
Yes, I was. It's a really good show, though, because it does bring back a lot of the old time methods and how we've developed through the years.
So we woke up today and we realized that the market was crashing. Just to put it in perspective for people, this video might not be released until next week, so you have a little bit of context of where we are at today. The markets are crashing. I think oil's down like 7%, the NASDAQ down like 5%. About $2.5 trillion has been wiped off the face of the earth. And so who knows where we're going to be when this video actually releases. I just thought I'd put that out there. So if, you know, the world has ended by then, or maybe the markets rally once again, just so you guys know, what are your thoughts on all that? Like, are you...
So I think with it, a lot of people start putting their money into untangible objects. And now they're watching that disappear because, once again, a stock is just a stock. It's completely invisible. And I'm more into tangible. So I like to buy property because I know I can sell that at any point and still have the cash when I retire. And it's really sad to see everyone's 401ks, everything is plummeting, and they don't really have a contingency for what's about to happen.
You know, people have these intangible assets, if you can even call them that. Artificial assets that are really grid dependent, right? And one thing I've liked about your channel is that you're coming at prepping from a person who, you know, has maybe grew up on a homestead. And in my opinion, these people are already the ultimate preppers, right? Like farmers are the ultimate preppers for the most part. Then you have another kind of group of person who's maybe grew up in the city and they're getting interested in prepping, and both kind of converge, you know, right here. And how we met, of course, was I did a reaction video to you talking about ReadyWise or something like that. And it was a big fiasco because everybody thought I was throwing shade on you, and that wasn't the case at all. In fact, as I just stated, like you are coming at this from having the real deal homesteading experience. So you have what every prepper ultimately wants to get to. You change your name from Charmingly Frugal to Doomsday Queen. What was the reason for that?
So originally when I came up with Doomsday Queen, it was based off pretty much the same video that you had made commentary. Is the New York Post had ran an article saying I was the Queen of Doomsday. So I just opened up the channel. I never posted anything.
Really?
I was just like, oh, I'm just going to coin it.
You got
quick.
mentioned in the New York Post?
Uh-huh.
As the Queen of Doomsday? On the basis of what? Like your Charmingly Frugal TikTok?
Pretty much. And I was like, oh, well, this is interesting. Like, I never did an interview with them, but it was all about doomsday and all of this. So I was like, I just opened it and I never posted on the account. And when doing so many things frugally, you have to accept the fact that there is going to be things with prepping that you can't be frugal on, certain gear. And making that transition over, and I was just like, you know what? Maybe it's a time that Charmingly Frugal stays with TikTok and we can advance from just those frugal finds with prepping into something bigger. So then I just went with the name that was given.
And you came to YouTube because we can say this because we're on YouTube, but you were a little pissed off at the censorship over there.
So censorship is a big issue. I know that you see it a lot of times when you do your like daily updates, right? Where somebody they don't understand what the term apolitical is. They just don't get it. They think somebody needs to be one side or another. So when I would be doing lives or communicating and just talking about prepping in general, for me, nothing gets under my skin more than when people say, I want to prep for a presidency. And I'm like, it's going to change every 4 years. Something different's going to happen. You have to prep for everything. And they would get offended, and then I would get reported and reported and reported. And all of a sudden I couldn't be live for like 6 or 7 days. And the way I would have to talk about like firearms or weapons, I'd have to call it Second Amendment, pew-pews, freedom seeds. And I all of a sudden had to talk like a toddler. And
Straight
it drove
out of
me
communist
crazy.
China.
Right? I was like, when you're having a conversation, you're like, what kind of freedom seeds do you have? And somebody's like, what is a freedom seed? I'm like, ammunition. I'm sorry.
Wow.
I figured out how to talk around them, but it makes you talk like a toddler. So when I switched over, I was like, you know what? The freedom of speech is a lot better. And then you're able to actually express it. But I feel like here you don't get as reported as much as over there. Somebody just gets offended by something and they want to take you down. And
when you go to your channel, it's clear that you're doing the canning, you're doing the growing your own food. Tell us a bit about what you do on your channel and, a little bit about yourself.
It's called deliberate living. So I grew up with preppers, and I've been doing canning since I was 3 years old. And that's kind of that homesteading, growing your own food, preparing it, preserving it, and having it on the back. But going into it, I did not really understand like the buckets. They are truly a gimmick because it is the eye of deception. When you see something that is squared off like a bucket, you assume that there is more in it than what there actually is. And your video actually did open me up to that because I did looked at what was inside of it, broke everything down, and I realized, yeah, it is kind of a scam in its own way. But for me, I like to grow my own food. I homestead a lot, freeze dry, preserve everything away. And then I like to teach things from the basic. So not everybody grew up the same way as I did. So they don't really understand you want to have at least minimum 6 months of food put away at all times because you don't know if you'll have a bad growing season. You don't know what the next year is going to bring. And living that way, it really changed the way that I live my daily life. My entire life.
A lot of people are coming into this from a world of the just-in-time delivery system where they've never had that experience of having to plan around the seasons, right? So like you said, 6 months, that would be enough food to presumably carry you to the next season if it was a bad growing season, right?
Yeah. And so minimally, you'd want to prep for 6 months, but ultimately you'd want more than a year because there's rotations with plants. Sometimes you'll get a really good grow season, for instance, like with my apricot trees, and then the next season, they won't produce anything. So when I prep, like when I'm canning stuff from my apricot trees, I just assume that the next season's going to be bare. So I actually prep for 2 years off of those trees.
Yeah, so you got food storage is a big component of this. And canning is your preferred method?
I like canning and freeze drying. I just got into freeze drying this last year, so that's been a big game changer. But yeah, canning, mylaring, and freeze drying.
So let me ask you, as a woman, what first drew you into the world of prepping? And were you a bit of an outlier amongst your friends?
Because I grew up this way, my family always believed that the markets were going to crash. My grandpa went through the Great Depression and my grandma went through the World War II phase. So we actually always believed that there could be another world war that would end up having us back on ration cards, lining up. So I always just believed what I was taught. And as we've gone through time, we're noticing more and more all these events happening and they're stacking and stacking. It's really hard not to see people wake up to what is about to happen, because if all the stocks crash, the banks crash, everything's done. And there needs to be more realistic to it.
It was something that was enduring, like throughout your upbringing, it was always just second nature to you, and it's persistent to this point.
Grocery stores were always considered for the elite in my family. So we always just tried to make sure that everything was stocked up, preserved correctly, growing our own. My family's had victory gardens since before World War II. And even after I got out of high school, I think I was like the only college student that actually had a full garden that I was preserving from. It was very strange for people to understand, and it did create such a disconnect with people. And then the housing crisis happened, and everyone was like, "Oh, how do you afford what you're doing?" And I was like, "This is just the way I was raised, so it works." And I think we're going to see more people, as these prices of groceries go up, start to really take advantage of the old ways, really want to start learning and honing in on it, because it's never failed. That system has never failed. All these other new systems are failing.
Now, is that common where you come from, like for people to have, you're in Utah, right?
Mm-hmm. So in Utah, prepping is actually very common here.
Right.
The church that's present here persuades people to have their own food storage, and they're supposed to have up to a year per person in their family.
So in terms of women then, and female perspectives on prepping, do you think that are you noticing that there's more females taking an interest in this thing? Is it, is that like the majority of your viewers, would you say?
So about 60% of my viewers are women, and it's really nice to see women taking accountability, wanting to learn how to protect their family, not only just tactical, but preservation, water preservation. There's a lot of women that are really intrigued.
Are you coming at this from a different way? Like one of the questions you were asking me about beforehand was with respect to females versus male risk assessment. So as males, we maybe fixate on the security aspects of things and, the gear aspects of things. And is there a difference in your opinion as to where the focus is, or is that purely superficial?
I feel like with my own perspective, I'm very balanced because I served also in the military. So I do have that protection, tactical, that perception. But from my following, I notice a lot of them are more worried about if the power goes out, more of a grid down scenario. They're really focused in on natural disasters. And that's great, because that's once you start prepping in that aspect, everything else comes a lot easier. So knowing how to handle a grid down scenario versus just a power outage. And yeah.
One of my goals is to try to get more women prepping. And so what do you think is the sticking point there? Like, why is it the case that only a handful of females, all of you have this instinct, obviously, but is it cultural? Like, what do you think it is?
I think that it truly is the perception of it, because it was given such a bad name at the beginning. But a lot of women don't realize that they're natural preppers as it is. We've all seen a woman with a diaper bag that is geared up for any kind of mishap a baby could have. And they're so prepared. And now applying that into their regular life, they ultimately are a planner. They're very multifaceted, and they just don't realize it. And so just trying to get them to want that and see that you already plan. Women are just natural planners. They plan everything from parties, birthday party, you name it. They do everything. Doctor's appointments, school functions. But if they start bringing that into their household of, well, okay, what if the grocery stores are empty again? How am I going to go about this? They're 5 steps ahead. It's just trying to open up their minds to it.
All right, guys. So as some of you know, Canadian Prepper is a fully independent channel. We don't have sponsors, and we're beholden to nobody. You can help support us by supporting yourself by gearing up at CanadianPreparedness.com.
I know that in an emergency, having the right gear can make all the difference. This is why I've tested and curated the best preparedness products on the market so that you can be confident and ready for whatever comes your way. Now, back to the video.
You're a mom. How has your approach to preparedness changed since you became a mom? And is that something that is a big motivator for you, being a parent?
Oh, yes. I think I'm going to offend people when I answer this one. So nobody is going to come protect your kids or take care of your kids. If everything collapses, that is on you. And I feel like as a parent, it made me take it more seriously because I grew up that way, but I just focused more on survival skills and bushcraft skills. And then once I had children, I realized, okay, if the power does go out, this is on me. Their panic is on me. And so taking that accountability as a mom and making sure that I prep for them, whether it's in medication, like making sure that my kids have a year's supply of antibiotics, that's important as a parent to think ahead because kids get sick all the time. And antibiotics can be the brink between life or death with children.
I think there's a shift that happens when a person has children, when they start focusing on this stuff, which is not to say that it's a necessary thing, that you can be a prepper without having children. You could just want to look after your family, your community, or even just yourself.
I think it is a shift. I think that you are now putting yourself in, like you said, you started prepping more once you had kids. You had to think more about what's going on with them. And I think there is a shift. There is less people having kids nowadays. A lot of people don't even know how to generally take care of themselves, let alone another human.
Yeah. And have you noticed the different fears or motivators for women when it comes to preparedness? So, fear is a big component of this. It has to be, because if you're not worried on some level, not fear in the sense of irrational fear, but a rational underlying, appreciation for the precariousness of the world. Do you think the fears and the motivators for women are different than men?
I do. Because I have such a heavy female following, and a lot of females, they're worried about if there's like a natural disaster and they can't take care of themselves or they don't know how to start their generator, and trying to break that down to them, like, you can do this, we can do it one pull at a time, it's going to work. But there is a lot of fear motivators that they believe that if something was to happen, that they would immediately be a target. I do notice that a lot. And you don't want women to assume that they're going to be a target. It's 2025. I actually get really frustrated that there is male preppers in the social media that say once the collapse happens, women are not women anymore. Little girls aren't little girls. You want to cut their hair, chop it off, all those things. And I agree with it to a point, but I think that's what they're intimidated by. Women, if they train in self-defense and they train tactically, they do not have to fear of the same thing. You wouldn't want to make yourself a beacon, obviously.
Well, I mean, the great equalizer is firearms, right? And where you live, you're fortunate enough to have access to more of those things than we do here. Our rights are slowly eroding, but so that's something that females should definitely prioritize, is self-defense. And so you think that's a big motivator for...
Probably they more follow into like food preservation, but trying to get them to pick that up as a big motivator, that they can have power. I think that right there needs to be the big motivator, that they can take some of their power back by being prepared.
What are some differences, like in men and women, that you've noticed in terms of prepping, like issues that you think you guys might face that we might overlook? I mean, there's obvious biological ones, but, just in general.
I feel like some of the issues are probably more biological and also hygiene. So I think that when you're prepping, that men and women, if they prep for each other, it's going to make a post-collapse situation a little bit more comfortable. And to throw a little dark humor in there, I mean, they'll probably get luckier more often if they are prepping for their significant other and taking their health and their physical being into their mind.
Got to be careful with that, though, right? In the apocalypse?
Yes. No babies in the apocalypse.
I mean, that's something that people have to talk about. I mean, because it often comes up in post-apocalyptic fiction. They fool around, they get pregnant, there's no more contraceptives available. Then you're running around with a liability. And yeah, it's definitely something that people have to, take into consideration, all jokes aside.
You don't want to be a Lori off The Walking Dead situation with a
No,
C-section.
no. Yeah, and I mean that's one of the primary ways that women used to die, right? Is during childbirth.
Mm-hmm.
So, how do you recommend women prepare for safety during civil unrest or grid down scenarios? The gray man for women might be slightly different than for men.
I think gray man with women and men is completely different.
Gray woman.
For me, or gray woman. Yep, gray woman. But for me, I carry like extra rubber bands. I would have a way to like hide my hair up a little bit more. I'm always carrying a hoodie because a hoodie can act as a hat. It's not as noticeable. But being aware of, I don't know if you've seen it on social media. Have you seen the trend where it's like a guy is walking in and they say, oh, he's noticing every exit, everything. And then the girl's walking next to him and she's like, tra la 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 la. We need to take our mind away from that, and we need to step up because it is time for us to start noticing exits and entry points. And if something was to happen, whether it's on a highway, what is going to be your quickest route to, if it's in a mall, I mean, we already see mass shootings happening everywhere. So we do need to get into that mindset, even if it was civil unrest, to be able to remove yourself from the situation discreetly without a lot of people noticing, oh, where did she go? For me, I carry everywhere I go, and 99% of the time, people don't even notice I'm carrying.
Yeah, I think a lot of men nowadays, I'm not sure how much I believe that TikTok, because I think there's a harmonization of the sexes and the genders nowadays where it's, generally speaking, historically, that probably was the case. But nowadays, I don't know if if men are that vigilant anymore. I mean, I know a lot of people are just completely oblivious to those things. So, yeah, just having that self-responsibility aspect when it comes to security. Are there ways that women can weaponize their underestimation in a survival situation? Because I've often thought about how being perceived as weak can actually be somewhat of a strength if people misread that, right?
Absolutely. And I think that women should take advantage of that. I don't think we've all met that woman at the bar that pretends that they're dumb and they pretty much can get away with anything that they want to. Take that into a post-apocalyptic situation. You can gather intel on somebody. You can know what they have. You can use that weakness as a total advantage point.
You've done this before.
Maybe once or twice.
What are some overlooked prepping skills that women excel at, do you think?
I honestly believe women need to be on the range more. Women naturally have such a low blood pressure and low breathing rate. They actually can qualify very well. When I'm on the range, I qualify as expert and my blood pressure is naturally lower. I don't have like the tremor, the shake of my hand or my breathing exercises. And women, they can excel really well in tactical. They just have to try, just to put themselves out there.
Well, I think in addition to that, too, I mean, based on what I've seen, we already talked a little bit about organization and just kind of the nurturing component of things. I think that's necessary in a community to have somebody like that, right? Like if you just have if it's a big sausage fest in the apocalypse, those guys are going to be tearing each other apart in a matter of no time.
Well, and women are very multifaceted. They have so many dimensions, especially with planning, organization.
Yeah. And what's your favorite piece of gear, your favorite piece of prepping gear, besides your firearm?
Honestly, would be my tactical belt. I actually carry a tactical belt inside my bug out bag because women's pants, if you can get it in your shop, get pants that have pockets. Women's pants don't have pockets. They don't. So you are left with only the ability to carry a knife, very small. Like a men's pocket is about this big. A woman's pocket on their jeans is about this big.
We actually do sell women's pants at the shop, LA Police Gear pants. They got a lot of pockets.
I need to see the pockets. I have to compare them.
Okay. So do you have a favorite pair of prepping apparel for women?
So I wear tactical pants that I can actually fit magazines in. So those pockets are a little bit wider.
Yeah.
And so I'm able to carry a flashlight. I can carry my knife. I can carry a multi-tool. But actually, a fun one that I think women need to take advantage of is women always are wearing jewelry, correct? Like it's not something very noticeable. It's noticeable, but it's not something where a person would think, oh, is that an actual like something for prepping or an everyday carry? But I do wear like a bracelet and it has a handcuff key in it. And it also has an glass breaker. And then I also make necklaces that are ferro rods and nobody notices if it's hanging off my neck. And it allows me to have just something a little extra without it being too noticeable.
Well, these LA police gear pants that we carry, they are tactical pants. So I'm pretty sure they have your, pockets for your magazines and your clips and all that stuff in there. I wear them every day. So, and everybody I give these pants to swears by them. So I'm going to send you a pair. What about EDC and get home bags? Is that something you dabble in? Is there any gender specific considerations for that?
So on my everyday carry, like I said before, I actually have a tactical belt inside my bag because it just is a way to alleviate some of the weight of the bag and put it on my hips versus on my shoulders. I do design my bags also to have feminine hygiene health in it for women. And then for children, I actually design our bags around the size of our children, the weight of our children, and making sure that they weigh less than their school backpack. So it's something feasible for them to carry.
Well, that's dual purpose too, some of those feminine hygiene products for first aid.
Yep.
Have you trained in any other self-defense besides firearms?
So I have taken Army combatives up to an intermediate level and Krav Maga and pressure points.
What do you think of Krav Maga?
It is amazing, especially for size comparison. When I got home from Iraq, I was assaulted at a bar by somebody who was 3 times my size. And when I took Krav Maga, I never thought I would be in a situation that I could use it. And I was able to take down a man that was 6'4".
Wow.
And just realizing that I could use my power to incapacitate him.
Would you kick him in the nuts
get
or
myself
something?
out of a situation. Oh no, I totally took out his throat.
Okay.
I hit him so hard that I almost collapsed his airway.
Oh, wow. Well, mental note, don't mess with Crystal of Doomsday Queen because you will get throat punched. So, community building in collapse scenarios, is there a difference? I was alluding to the fact that you kind of need both, right? You need, because community, it tends to be something which I think is more feminine in nature, coming together as opposed to men are more warlike typically. There has to be that element of social glue and community cohesion. That seems to be more of a feminine trait. Am I wrong? Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's more patriarchal aspects to it.
I think you're correct in it. I think that the lone wolf idea is great at the very beginning, but you have to have some level of community. If you've never homestead, like you've said before, that you believe homesteaders and farmers are like the ultimate prepper. If you've never done all that work by yourself, when the collapse happens, doing it all alone is going to be a lot. So having that community and having set guidelines for each person or tasks, I think it is the glue that holds things together. So then you can have that warlike scenario and that protection scenario, but you also at the back burner have a way to have food and water, and the mind collapses over time when you're by yourself. So having that community is very important to keep that mental integrity going.
And men tend to be more lone wolf preppers than women, I think. Like it seems to be a common trope in the prepping community that, the one guy thinks he can go out and go alone, whereas you seldom see that. I mean, there's a few, female YouTubers, acquaintances of mine even, who do the wilderness survival in the backwoods thing, but it's far less common, I think.
It is. I think it's a lot less common because women are more social. They want that social aspect. For me, I'm not as social. I'm more introverted. And so when I go out in the field, I sometimes get texts from like my kids or my friends, and they're like, it's time for you to come back. Like, come back to society.
And the other thing I like about your channel is that, oftentimes there's these thirst traps on social media, right? You know what I'm talking about. It'd be very easy for you to probably become mega viral, but then people wouldn't be coming to you for your knowledge, your expertise, your experience, right? Which you have a lot of, and you have a lot of great ideas. And clearly you have a good understanding of the state of the world. When I watch your current events analysis, I can tell, like she knows what she's talking about, So you don't want, it's difficult, I could imagine, being a woman and having to navigate that environment without, without going down that path, because it'd be very easy for you to do that, I presume, right? It's probably something you've thought of at times. And
But then at the end of the day, then they wouldn't actually want that knowledge. They would only be lustful for that thirst trap. And I don't want to discredit myself, and I don't want to discredit my skills. So it is a very hard way to navigate with social media is, do you want to be known as, oh, she looks like that? Or do you want to be known as, okay, she taught me how to break this down, put it back together, and to grow it, preserve it, freeze dry it, anything like that.
Yeah, it'd be a tough thing to overcome, and it's such a slippery slope. And I see some like female channels go down that path where one day they make a thumbnail that everybody clicks on for reasons that are obvious, and then they're like, I didn't get as many views this time. Maybe I should do that again. And then it's this thing where it's it gradually gets more and more risque, and over time, before you know it, it's how
It's
the
all
story
out
goes.
there.
It's all out there, and then that's it.
It's all out there, and there's nothing to the imagination.
I definitely would encourage people to go and check out your channel, and let's try to get her to 10,000 subs, guys. I think we can do it. It's like just where you're talking about the psychology of SHTF, because it's very hard to find a female who's doing that kind of content.
And I think that comes with emergency preparedness. I feel like a lot of women actually bring it back to the basics, because that's something we'll always see. It doesn't have to be a hypothetical doomsday, the zombies. I mean, I would pay for the zombies at this point over what could happen. But you look at like natural disasters, every year there's something, right? Currently right now you got northern Michigan with freezes, there's earthquakes, there's fires, there's something. So just even that basic level, and then kind of rearing it back, because then it allows you to prep for even bigger things if you have those basic levels covered.
Absolutely. Do you have any advice on frugal preparedness? Obviously, you grow your own food. You got a lot of freeze-dried stuff in the back there, but you kind of blend both of these things. Do you have any tips on how people can prep frugally without sacrificing quality?
So the
Don't
way
include ReadyWise.
I did not. I swear. I've gotten rid of it.
Oh, you actually got rid of it. I probably would have kept it.
No, it's an Econics on the property. It's for that last resort.
All right.
But I'm not going down with not the buckets. So prepping frugally, I would say, honestly, you want to have the buy one for now, two for later mentality. Only food you eat. So if you're in the store and you notice something that's shelf stable that goes on sale, you can stock up for your family. So like my daughter, she loves SpaghettiOs. I can't keep enough in my shelves ever. But I'll buy one for now, two for later. If that means one for now and 30 for later, she's going to go through them. And if they're on sale, then you're allowing yourself to save money. Then you can take that money and apply it to more like gear and, for instance, like body armor, those kind of things. I was saving up on that as a stay-at-home mom. I just wanted to make sure that I could cover those costs to make sure that I could buy the correct gear.
What about getting reluctant people on board? I mean, I'm not one to proselytize to people about you got to become a prepper, and, I'm not bringing it up at family engagements at the dinner table, because it's kind of annoying when people do that. Do you have a way that you try to encourage people that who perhaps aren't? I mean, you're in Utah, so it's a prepping culture. Maybe this isn't a big deal out there. But where I live, people are reluctant.
So I always try to open the conversation of, so what did you think of the pandemic? That is always a good one, because everyone wants to talk about their story of the pandemic. And when they bring up stuff like, oh, the shelves were empty, the grocery stores, and I was like, so have you changed anything? Like, have you thought about changing anything? And that actually gets people talking. And that's when I start bringing in like that self-preservation, because once it hits on a level that they accept, and everybody went through the pandemic, there's only been a few people out there that have said, well, I wasn't affected by anything with it. And I was like, really? Are you sure? Are you lying? Like, but once those shelves were empty, that's when a lot of people opened their eyes, but a lot of people just don't know how to make that change. Like, well, this could happen again.
You know, I've always thought I never talk about prepping ever when I'm around people. In fact, it's probably more because I'm trying to be gray man about it. And I don't even want people to know I have a YouTube channel. You know, so when I'm out there, I don't bring it up. I mean, obviously, I'm talking to the world every day on here. But in my personal life, at work, jobs I've worked in when I had the channel, you know, people are always like, and I think that actually motivated people more because they see me doing this, but they also see me being, you know, reserved about it. Which if I was being overzealous about it and just blabbing from the rooftops, you got to do this, they just think I'm a crazy person.
My real life think I'm a political comedian.
A political comedian? Can you explain that?
They've never watched any of my content. So like when I just hypothetically talk to them, I'm just like, have you ever thought about like maybe growing your own food a little bit? Or I just keep it very nonchalant, but most people in my real life have no idea what I do.
Do you ever wonder why certain people, is it because they're not aware of the risks, do you think, or are they just naive to things? And how can you even be naive at this point? Like I've always wondered what makes a prepper tick, you know, like what's the fundamental psychological difference that makes somebody interested in this stuff? And I'm not talking about the panic preppers who run out and panic buy when the shit hits the fan. If you're somebody who's enduring in this and there's something intrinsic, do you ever wonder what makes people get into this life?
You wonder? I haven't pinpointed what it could be. I feel like a lot of it does come from maybe financial crisis, people who grew up really poor. I've had that mentioned to me before of, you know, we grew up really poor, so we always just set something extra aside. And that's how my mom went about it. But I just don't know what actually makes them tick. Like what makes them finally like pull that switch of, oh, this is going to be my whole lifestyle. And I'm fully committed to, compared to like the toilet paper apocalypse. That's what I always think of as the panic buyers. Yeah,
I'm not sure what it is fundamentally. It could be something life experience related. It could be some trauma that they experienced. Yeah, I don't know what it is. Like, there's something though.
Maybe you just long for a time when it was simpler versus everything that's so complex now. Maybe that's one of those little pinpoints where people just really enjoy the old-fashioned way, not the instant gratification. The phone, you know, you just ding it, you can order food. I mean, I could open my phone and have us food here in like 10 minutes, but is it better to grow it and cook something at home, or does that take longer?
Well, I was talking to somebody about this last night. Like, we were watching this 1923, and my suggestion was that life would suck back then because there'd be no, you know, you'd be lucky if you had a flush toilet, and, you know, you might not have, you wouldn't have air conditioning, and, you know, life would be very challenging. But at the same time, you know, there's a certain simplicity to that and there's less to worry about, right?
So I go out hunting on a dry camp, and they're, you know, once again, old, it's 4 or 5 cabins. All of them are just ran by solar panels. It's a dry cabin. There's no water. You have to haul in your own water. And there is like that simplicity, but I wouldn't want to live like that full time every day because hauling in water is kind of a pain. And it is a lot of work in general. But for a time, it's very enjoyable.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I got a few more prepping questions, and then we're going to wrap this up.
Okay.
What does collapse look like for women? Is it going to differ for, you know, women and men?
I feel like more of a collapse is either a financial collapse or a grid down collapse, where it just isn't coming back up. It's the end, or at least it's going to take a while to rebuild. I know a lot of people preach like gold and silver. That's more of the buildup of after post collapse. It's not going to be really valued right during a collapse. So that's kind of how I look at what a collapse is.
What are you concerned about right now? Because you're pretty up to speed and in the know of what's going on. Is there something pressing? I mean, do you really feel like a financial collapse is going to result in something that is so starkly different? Or is it just going to be a gradual decline?
Really, I feel like I'm more extreme. So, with everything, with all the tensions going around in the world, do you really think that, for instance, let's say World War III, do you think Russia would want to put their boots to ground on this continent? No. Hacking is so much easier. And there's been so many different like hacks that have happened, hospitals, technology. I feel like if it does escalate to that before nukes go off, I really believe that people will start shutting down grids. Why would you want to risk losing any more men when technology just makes it a little bit easier?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a part of the whole strategy is to first use cyber attacks to dismantle the grid. That's the in the run up the escalation ladder, cyber will be first. The extent of, what they're able to do with that, I guess, is still a subject of debate because it's fairly selective in terms of where they can target. But, I could imagine a scenario where as the attack surface broadens and more devices are hooked up to the internet and things are more interconnected, that there could very well be a situation where that is the first leg. I don't know. I think the real question would be, well, how long does it get from that point to a kinetic escalation, right?
I think if they take down the eyes, like for instance, the technology portion, then it's just completely open to whatever kind of attack or movement or declaring war on a different country. That's kind of just where my headspace is on it.
Yeah, it's there's so many things that could potentially go wrong. I mean, I think we're really at a period of time where from week to week, you really just never know what's going to happen next because it seems like there's a historically unprecedented event that happens every other week. And because we've seen so many historic days over the past 2 years, like things that have never happened before, we just think, oh, must be Wednesday, right?
Yep. It's almost like a trauma dump, like almost like a trauma bond. Like we see it so much that these once in a lifetime moments are happening so rapidly that people don't even realize like that's not good. Like, I mean, I'm guessing age wise, how many lifetime events have we gone through?
Yeah.
Like,
oh, you mean recently or?
Yeah, just in total, like through our ages,
I mean, in the last 5 years, there's been so many things that have happened that have never happened before in human history. But, still, I get the Normalcy Normans on the channel reminding me that nothing ever happens.
Yep.
Because,
So,
their power's still on, right?
well, and I think with that, it's almost like a trauma bond with us, with just the world in general. So we're getting so overloaded with information, just breaking news, this and that when something actually happens, I think 90% of the population will have no idea it's about to occur.
Absolutely.
Because they're becoming numb to it. It's almost the desensitization, I believe, is the word that they use. Isn't that what they say with like video games? They desensitize them so much that when something actually happens, they have no idea.
It's also a form of like learned helplessness where you've been battered for so long that you just don't even respond to that sort of stimuli anymore. And you just learn to immediately capitulate to it. And I agree with you that there's probably a component of that is working us up. And it's very akin to that analogy of the frog in boiling water where, which is not entirely true, the actual analogy. The frog jumps out of the pot long before it boils. But nonetheless, if we presume that it doesn't, then that's the situation we're in right now where, like you're saying, it's progressively ramping up. And so long as they can time release it in such a way where nobody, really takes notice, because what they don't want to do is start a panic either, and there's, they want to have a managed decline in a sense. And I'm still trying to wrap my head around what the logic is for these tariffs and why they came out so aggressively. it seems like every economist is saying this is a crazy idea. It almost starts to look like a planned implosion because they're getting ready for a world war. But
I think that's what it is.
that almost seems like, really, is it that? Holy shit. If it's that, then I guess we've been on the right track for a long time.
Well, and if you look at it like with just like news articles, right? New tariff, new this, new that. So when everything else is going on, there's always a distraction feature to it. It also comes with military trainings. There's always something that's going to be a distraction while something else is going on over on the left side. So as they're allowing that to hit the media, if a lot of people don't realize, media is very biased and it is very planned. There is a coordinator with every single government agency out there that will invite certain news media in, just essentially like how me and you are having a conversation right now. If we brought in people, would we want to bring in people that are more like-minded? Or are we going to want to bring people in that would be more critical or wanting to look at it and be like, no, they're wrong. They're wrong.
Yeah.
You have to look at it as every announcement from the government right now is being orchestrated. It really is subliminal.
Well, especially when you have the government investing almost nothing in civil infrastructural defense. Like I was reading an article yesterday, I was talking about it on the channel about how Sweden was investing 10 million, a big whopping 10 million in their civil defense infrastructure. Now, to their defense, no pun intended, they've had shelters built for their entire population, something we can't say here. So they're just refurbishing them. But if they're spending $10 million on the public, they're likely spending a lot more than that on continuity of government planning. This is what's concerned me about a lot of people who were saying that the sky was falling just a few months ago. All of a sudden now you don't need to prepare and everything's fine. And, when really the writing's on the wall. And even today, I'm looking at Alex Jones' InfoWars and he's posting pictures of himself posing in the gym. And it's like, if this was, 4 months ago, you would be screaming from the rooftop about how the world was ending and you got to buy gold and stock up on nootropic, brain boosting, testosterone boosters and all this stuff, right? And it's a completely different story. So, but I see that happening on a much bigger scale where they should be advising people to prepare. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy. It could just be like, you could time release it in a way where it's not going to start a panic. But they're not doing that for some reason. Like, why not tell people to grow a victory garden,
Well, and with just even North America as itself, you have Europe that's releasing pamphlets and talking about being prepared a little bit. And here it's just like, oh no, everything's great. Everything's fine. We're just going to burn our Teslas. We're just going to yell at each other in here. And it's all civil unrest inside North America. Yeah. Well, every other country is talking about preparedness on some level. And a lot of people, I feel like they live in a very cartoon style like world where they believe that the government's going to come save them. Have they not seen Hurricane Helene? Have they not seen these fires? Ain't nobody coming. Hawaii fires. Like it's never going to change. And some people just want to put their hood on and put their head down and just muffle through it while the rest of the world is talking about some tiny level of preparation. And what was it? NATO gave out their briefing on being prepared. I believe it was February of last year. Remember when that guy came on and he's like, everybody get your candles and your flashlights.
On batteries.
Yes. And now it's even coming out more so. They're putting leaflets inside of water bills and it's escalating, very slow time release. And in America, we're not talking about anything.
Well, this is why I have no hope, really, Crystal, is because no matter how much bad stuff happens, like you said, the fires and all this stuff, no matter how many times the government fails people, it's this persistent complacency and this false belief that they're going to be able to resolve the situation. Don't worry, FEMA will be here any moment, right? And this is interesting because, as you say, the world is preparing, but not the USA. Here we're preoccupied with all this other nonsense. Yet the world, really, literally, from China to even Europe now, is preparing. And it's becoming mainstream. in Europe. As Mickey Mouse as it might be, I'm not sure if you've seen the video of the woman,
I
the EU
did.
lady. That was really, really
With her
corny.
purse with
But
the granola bars.
what's that?
The purse with the
Oh
granola
yeah,
bars.
yeah. That was very corny. But you know, I mean, we don't even do that here, which is crazy. So I don't know. I mean, we're looking at this from the perspective of one of these quote unquote authoritarian regimes. You know, I got to wonder. I mean, you look at what happened during COVID, for example. What did they do in China? Okay, maybe you think it was BS, but they locked down. Everybody complied. Everybody did what they had to do. What did we do here? We burned down cities. It's like, that's
We
the
did.
difference. So imagine in a real SHDF situation how it's going to go.
I truthfully think we wouldn't even have like the 7-day factor if there was a true SHTF where it would take, that 5-day, like hitting about 5 days before people go catastrophic. I think in the US and Canada and all of North America is right there, that it would be very quick. It would be a very quick turn on because people turned on each other so quickly. People were turning each other in just in the area that I live in. A family had a birthday party and people called the cops that they had a
What?
birthday party during the pandemic.
Yeah, I mean the rat culture and just I mean, even if you just look at the average day road rage, I mean, imagine that, times 100, people getting, and I think it's just the result of having it way too good for too long and forgetting, the fundamentals and family values and the things that really do matter. We've drifted so far from that everybody's just on edge because they're fundamentally not happy. And I think this preparedness lifestyle that we talk about, it actually is real happiness. If you can do it right, if you can do it in a way where you're close to the land, you're out there every day. And not everybody can do this. I mean, there's only so much green space out there, but everybody can have. And I was talking to City Prepping, and he's starting a course about how to, backyard suburban, like basically convert your suburban quarter acre, whatever it is, to a self-sustaining system. And so everybody can do it, right? So it's just, we'd be so much more mentally healthy as a society if we had more interest in this stuff. And, the powers that be could easily move people in that direction if they wanted to. But instead, it's just chaos. And I have a feeling that that's not going to change, unfortunately.
Sadly, it probably won't.
Now, okay, let's try to end on a bit more of a positive note here. So,
Pressing.
what are you doing? What are some big projects you're working on? And what should people expect from the Doomsday Queen channel in the near future?
So some of the projects I am currently working on right now is establishing a water source out on the property.
Right.
We have to dig a well. It's about 400 to 600 feet in depth. So that's just a lengthy process, expensive, but lengthy. But currently right now I am bringing in fruit trees and amending the soil and creating a drip line system out of water scissors.
And so the water that you have under there, there's water under there.
It's either water or oil.
And is it, is it saline water? Is it salt water?
No.
Okay.
No.
So you're going to do a drip line. We actually have a in-ground irrigation system. And
Okay.
I don't know if that's something you'd want to consider, but it works great because none of the water goes to waste.
Yep.
Like it's all under the ground, right? Like you're not losing any to evaporation.
So here on this property, that's what I have is a drip line. It's in the ground drip line. And that's how I do our entire perimeter. Like, so I have trees and bushes going around the entire property here. But over there, I'm a little nervous because the soil is not the best. And so amending that, it's going to take a little bit.
Yeah.
And because it's half desert, half not, it's going to take a minute.
Do you think you'll do like a greenhouse out there or?
I'm hoping to get a greenhouse out there because it does get really cold in the winter. And
What's
the
really
snow just
cold?
recently. Last time I was out there,
Because really cold up here is minus 40 degrees Celsius.
okay, I'm not that level of cold. In Alaska, I was cold, but not that level. So I think it was like -7 when I was out there last time.
Okay. In the desert, I
But
guess that
no.
can be, you're pretty exposed.
So you have like the wind chill. The big thing is it could say like 30 to 32 degrees, but you have 20-mile-an-hour winds and it'll drop it down to 0.
Yeah. So it sounds like you got your work cut out for you there. I hope you can get that water source in because that's so fundamental. And hopefully it doesn't cost you too much because I know that can be a
Right.
pretty expensive investment, but it's one of the
They're
things that's
expensive.
going to give life, and if you can manage it properly. And how are you going to power the pump?
Solar.
Solar?
So out there, we do get a lot of sunlight. So I've been running solar for the camper this entire time, and it works really, really well. I occasionally have to hook up to like a gas generator if it's been cloudy or rainy or dark.
And your location, it's pretty isolated, secluded.
So that is one of the best parts of it. A lot of people have actually criticized me on it. From me to the nearest town is at least 20 miles.
Okay.
To the nearest town that has more than 500 people, a couple hours. So it's very isolated.
Well, that's one of those things that the best place is the worst place when the crap hits the fan, and vice versa. So the further you go out, yeah, it sucks to commute, and it takes a long time to build everything out. You got to plan a lot more. But if it ever did come down to the wire, you'll be happy you did that because, you'll be far away from all the problems. And that is what a lot of security consulting firms tell me is that, if you're preparing for an event like this, you want to be in a place where nobody knows you're there, essentially. That's the first way to avoid or to win a battle is to not have to fight it at all. So, putting yourself in that far out, while it comes with its challenges, it's an ideal situation if something ever were to come to pass.
It just takes a lot of planning, a lot. So like if I'm bringing out items, I have to make multiple trips, which is multiple hours just to bring them out.
Yeah, it can be a real pain, and but hey, that's what podcasts are for. That's what the Canadian Prepper channel is for. You can listen to me rant for 45 minutes. Hopefully I keep you busy while you're driving out there. Anyways, I want to thank you for coming on the channel today. It's been great. I would encourage people, go and subscribe to the Doomsday Queen. I have a sneaking suspicion she's got a lot of great stuff coming your way on her channel. So thanks a lot for coming out, Crystal. I appreciate it. We'll hope to have you back someday.
Thanks for having me.
The best way to support this channel is to support yourself by gearing up at CanadianPreparedness.com, where you'll find high-quality survival gear at the best prices, no junk, and no gimmicks. Use discount code PREPPINGGEAR for 10% off. Don't forget, the strong survive, but the prepared thrive. Stay safe.